Hey guys, it's Jen from You So Much, and I am here again today with my 30-day video challenge, and I am so excited to be here with you all. One of the reasons why I'm so excited is because I sat down on this couch, and I'm all getting all comfy with my legs up and all that stuff, and I was like, what is that? And I realized that underneath the cushion where my feet are, I found my earphones, which I've been missing for like 3 days. So yay for making videos every day for 30 days because it helped me find my earphones. So anyway, today I'm excited to be here and talk to you guys about one of my favorite topics in the whole wide world, which is fantasy. That's right, because as you know, this is a fantasy channel, and I want to make videos that basically help to make your fantasies come true. I am kind of fascinated by the whole mix of femininity and masculinity. And that sounds really out there, I know, or maybe not, I don't know. It came from me kind of having this discussion about some of my favorite musicians. I'm talking about Michael Jackson, Madonna, Prince, Janet Jackson. They all had this amazing blend of masculinity and femininity. And so this is a really cool theme that I'm actually exploring for my book. For those of you who don't know, I'm in the middle of writing a book. It's a fantasy, and all the main characters in it have special powers with their hands. And so one of the overriding themes is sort of this theme of feminine power, and which of course now is all the rage. It's kind of like the theme of the decade probably. But in my book, one of the things that I'm kind of trying to highlight is that feminine power is not the same as masculine power, and then we all have power, it's just different. Like I said, I was having this discussion about who my favorite fantasy artists are, and my favorite artists, as you can imagine, I think it totally makes sense, are artists that kind of create a fantasy world for us. They, with their music and with whether they're a dancer or they're a singer or they're, you know, a writer for television or they're a movie producer, right? They all have this ability to create sort of this fantasy world. And that's part of the fun of art, is that we get to experience something that's a little bit out of the ordinary for us. But not only that, we can then picture ourselves in that fantasy, and it really helps take us into their world, into this world they created for us. So anyway, going back to some of my favorite musicians that do this, they all do this amazing job of creating this fantasy world. Well, I had this realization that they all also had this beautiful blend of masculinity and femininity. So for example, Prince, obviously he's a dude, but he has this amazing kind of feminine side to him. I mean, David Bowie is another great example. I mean, that one's a little bit more outright, right? We all knew David Bowie as somebody who was really embraced his feminine and masculine sides, because he did it on stage with makeup and some of the characters he portrayed kind of with his performances. But then there's also people like Madonna, who is clearly feminine and clearly loved to show off her curves, also was very strong and had this sort of masculine side and like really embraced that. And so it sort of brought up this question for me, like, is that part of what a fantasy is? Is this sort of like embrace of the masculine side and the feminine side, right? Or is that just another extension of sort of like the yin and the yang, right? The two sides of two things coming together to create this thing that we can step into. And maybe that's part of it, is that in order to have this picture for us, this vision that we can imagine ourselves as a part of, it really needs to have both sides. We have to be able to feel like it's complete in a way. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there as sort of an idea, and it really is making me start to wonder as I'm watching TV and movies and reading books and looking at characters. And in fact, that reminds me, one of my favorite TV writers, Shonda Rhimes, who writes for Scandal, which I love. It's like my favorite TV show. But she also writes for Grey's Anatomy and How to Get Away with Murder and a few other shows. I'm taking a masterclass from her, which, by the way, if you have ever wanted to take from a famous writer or actor or musician, masterclass has these amazing online courses basically that you can take from these famous people. And I don't know about the other classes, but Shonda's is so good. It is so good. Highly recommend. So anyway, but the reason why I'm bringing her up right now is because she talks about how she often will be approached by people who are so grateful to her that in her TV shows, she has all these women who have these amazing positions of power. And she's like, well, of course, like that's how it is in real life too, don't you know? She kind of like almost doesn't see the possibility of that not being the case, which I think is kind of cool because it really makes for these real, true, powerful characters that she creates in her stories, in her TV shows. But one of the techniques she suggests that you do as a writer is if you're ever questioning whether or not you're maybe using sexism, she really encourages you to switch the characters in the book. So make all the women into men and all the men into women in your head, and then write for them, and then see what develops out of that. And I love that because that really does sort of take away that sort of stereotype in a way, but it also then enhances, like if you switch it back then to them being feminine and masculine, like as you originally, women and men, I should say, as you originally intended, then the characters will have that complete side of femininity and masculinity like I'm talking about. Like maybe we really need that in order to really be pulled into this fantasy world. I just really love this concept. It's funny because I'm reading this other book recently, and it really occurred to me that this particular female character, this one particular female character, would be so enhanced if the writer had thought about her as a man briefly and thought, how would I write about this person differently? Would I be enhancing the reader's experience of this character if I did that? And it's I kind of think that would really have helped the writer. Like, I can't help but think that. And this also reminds me of a podcast I just heard. Okay, so if you watch my channel a lot, you know my favorite podcaster is James Altucher. And he recently interviewed the gal who helped co-write Despacito. Despacito. Ba, 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 ba. I love the videos about that song because it's true that like most of us who don't speak Spanish, we don't know most of the words to that song, but it's like so catchy and so amazing. You want to keep singing it, right? And so anyway, they were talking about, he was interviewing one of the writers of the song, and she's a female. She talked about how when she was first in the business, she would write songs for men, send them in, and she would demonstrate by singing them herself. And they would never be accepted. But then she started thinking, well, what if I had a guy sing it so they could really, you know, hear it in the guy's voice? I think that this masculine feminine concept can be seen everywhere. Like, I mean, the most popular, most powerful people in the world have that amazing blend of both. And so I'd love to hear your feedback on this. What do you think? Am I crazy? Or am I right? I mean, think about it. Sam Smith and Lady Gaga, and I mean, the list goes on and on. Would love to know what's your thoughts on the whole thing. Let me know in the comments below, and I so appreciate you being here, and we'll see you tomorrow for another one of my videos. Talk to you then. Bye.